You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and at DCAUreview.com. Now, here's today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to bonus episode number 5. I am one of your hosts, Cal, and with me, my brother and the gentleman that runs our Twitter page, it's Liam. Liam, welcome to bonus episode number 5 of the DCAU Review.
Yeah, we're quick turnaround this time on our bonus episodes. We usually try to space them out a little bit, but there's just so much fun DCAU related content out there in the world right now that we thought it would be fun to take a look at the first 2 chapters of the Batman: The Adventures Continue comic book. But not just that, Cal. We're also going to talk a little bit about the toy line that inspired all of this.
Absolutely. It's funny. I don't think it's a rare thing to hear a podcast talk about a comic book based on a toy line. I think I don't know that there are too many comic books based on toy lines. I guess maybe except for Transformers or G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
So maybe there are some Transformers. I'm sure there's podcasts for everything. So let me go take that back immediately.
Yes, there's definitely podcasts about that.
Absolutely. But as far as the DC and certainly the DCAU, since we are the DCAU review, this has been something we've been very excited about. Now, of course, Liam, so that you mentioned the action figures. So DC Collectibles has been doing for the last several years, DC, specifically Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman Adventures. They did 2 figures specifically from Superman the Animated Series, 2 figures from Batman Beyond, and then a series of the Justice League, from the Justice League, the main 7, plus Aquaman. So, they have done the series of figures based on the DCAU. But back in July of 2019, so just a few short months ago, which feels like decades ago at this point, but they came to the table because it seemed like the lines had been wrapping up. They've gone through a lot of the main roster of both Batman shows, and we're kind of coming up on some of those ancillary characters. Grey Ghost was in the last set that they did from Batman the Animated Series. They did a hard-act version of Batman, and they really filled out some of the major gaps in at least the original Batman the Animated Series run. Still some complaints on my part for some holes in the new Batman Adventures side, and certainly not enough characters filled out in the Superman Animated Series or Batman Beyond lines. But so they announced that they were going to be doing a series of figures called Batman: The Adventures Continue. So they had these pre-production models at San Diego Comic-Con last year of some of these characters that we had never seen before in DCAU continuity. Guys like, there was a Deathstroke, who obviously was featured in Teen Titans, but was never featured on any of the DCAU shows. There was a Dark Knight Returns style Batman in a armored suit. They also had some re-released versions of some of the original Batman Animated Series figures with the cell shading. But interestingly enough, there were 2 characters who are extremely popular. Not that Deathstroke and the Dark Knight Returns Batman are not popular, but there was a Azrael, circa 1993 Batman, in all his armored blue and gold 90s glory, and one Jason Todd as the Red Hood featured on this display. So that got who? What? Who? That's right, Jason Todd, the Robin that never was, or at least we thought never was. So later on at New York Comic-Con later on in the year, they released pictures of a Batman Who Laughs. There was a Red Rain Batman, also a Thomas Wayne, a Flashpoint Batman, as well as a Hush, all in this DCAU form, designed and by one Ty Templeton. Liam, for those who are uneducated or home or living under a rock, and Ty Templeton, why does that name sound so familiar?
Well, he's been involved in a lot of the DCAU tie-in comics over the years, going all the way back to stuff like the Batman Adventures, Batman and Robin Adventures, Batman Gotham Adventures, which was kind of the relaunch of it when it became when it started focusing on the new Batman Adventures timeline. Also did issues of the Superman Adventures tie-in comics. I think he may have even done a little bit of Justice League as well. So yeah, just a veteran of the DCAU, especially the comic book adaptations that sort of went hand in hand. Especially, I think if you were young kids like us who maybe weren't allowed to read the more mainstream comics at the time, having these tie-in books that went along with Batman the Animated Series, with Superman the Animated Series, were super important, and it's obviously a great choice because as we see when we'll get to the actual review of the comic book series, Ty Templeton can really kind of draw this DCAU style in his sleep at this point.
Yeah, as you said, he's a veteran. He's been working on a bunch of the different properties throughout the years. But not only did they announce that these figures would be designed by Ty Templeton, but they revealed also there would be character bios written by one Paul Dini. Of course, that name may again sound familiar because he's what we would refer to as one of the godfathers of the DCAU.
He's on the Mount Rushmore. It's like him,
for sure.
Bruce Timm, Eric Radomski, and then there's probably some fighting to be had, depending
Tucker,
on which
Burnett,
of these. Yeah,
James
Burnett,
Tucker, Alan Burnett,
Dwayne McDuffie. There's a few that could probably you could make a case for on that fourth spot. But yeah, I think Paul Dini definitely belongs up on the DCAU Mount Rushmore, no question.
So that got people's wheels turning and started thinking, well, what are these bios going to be? Are these characters, could they fit someplace in the DCAU timeline? Are they feeling out to see if maybe a return? Nostalgia has never been hotter than it is in 2020. So, are they feeling out maybe an interest in a return to the world of Batman the Animated Series? Well, it came just a few short months ago, Liam. There was an announcement from DC released through, I believe it was Entertainment Weekly or one of those, Variety magazine, announcing that they were going to be releasing a mini-series returning to the DCAU, and specifically Batman the Animated Series, and a line series called Batman the Adventures Continue that just happened to be written by one Paul Dini and with art by the aforementioned Ty Templeton. So
with Alan Burnett also working on the stories as well.
Right, bringing in Alan Burnett, who I thought retired, but they brought him out of retirement for this, which is awesome. You have two of the original figures that were responsible for bringing this universe to life, and certainly, as we stated, pivotal people when it came to forming that original Batman the Animated Series, back working in this property again. So excited was probably not even beginning to describe us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, that would be cool if that happened someday. And obviously, we're a DCAU podcast. We love this universe, and any chance we get to spend a little more time in this universe, finding out about new adventures that these characters took is always going to be really exciting. And so whether that's some of the direct-to-DVD animated movies that have come out, or in this case the comic books and the toys, always going to be super exciting for people like us especially, but I think for anybody who kind of grew up with these cartoons, or even if you discovered them a little later in life and developed a love for them. If you love this universe, I think you're always going to be excited when you hear, hey, there's more coming. That's always an exciting moment.
So there was immediate speculation as to how these characters could possibly fit in, and so far we are just one issue in. We've the second part came out this week. The first part came out 2 weeks ago, and due to everything that's happening, it sounds like there's going to be a delay in getting these physically in hand, but the digital copies have been starting to release at a very affordable 99 cents each. So figured we'll go through these two initial issues, which kind of technically make up one issue here, and just give our thoughts on it. We'll kind of break it down and give a as opposed to our normal 0 out of 40 scale, because it's a comic book and not an episode. We don't have music, and we certainly don't have voice acting to go through. We'll just talk about the art, talk about the writing, and maybe give a score out of 10 and a recommendation on whether or not to check it out. I think we can just go ahead and say check this out.
Yeah.
If you like the DCAU, but we'll get to that at the end. But all right, Liam. So spoilers ahead from here on out. If you have not read this yet, I do not recommend continuing to listen. Pause it, go buy these off of Amazon or Comixology or wherever you get a digital comic book yourself. Read them, enjoy them, and then come back and listen to us talk about these.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we kind of start off with we open up in Gotham City. It's the familiar area. We see Batman fighting Bane. And then from there, he runs afoul of some sort of giant robot who really kind of gives him a lot of trouble. We transition from there to Bruce Wayne at a party, and he's confronted by one Lex Luthor, which was it was already fun to get that mix in, hear them or read about them sort of rehashing their issues from the World's Finest crossover.
Yeah, it's a great way to start. I mean, it was a great way to start off, and certainly, again, reminding you that this is in continuity here. We're talking about, they're referring to things that have happened. We're not quite sure where timeline-wise this takes place. It seems to take place certainly before the whole Brainiac situation happened on Justice League.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Lex does have his Justice League power suit, so that kind of falls into, I'm not sure where this falls in, but as you said, seeing Bruce and Lex interact with each other is always fun, and I think not getting a real follow up to them and their interaction, as we saw in World's Finest, was one of the things that left us with wanting more. So seeing that in comic book form is really awesome. Yeah,
and we jump around a lot, and sort of at the beginning of part 2, as you mentioned, we see Batman investigating this robot. He's trying to contact Superman because this robot he's pretty open about saying, hey, this robot's it's a little above my pay grade. It's a little out of my league, and he's trying to get in touch with Superman, and he can't seem to find him. He's leaving, he calls him on the phone, and he even mentions to Alfred that, well, if he were anywhere within his incredible hearing range, he would have already been here. So Batman's kind of on his own, and he has to go, and again he finds this airfield where the robot's being housed, where we, as you mentioned, we find Lex Luthor in his full Justice League power suit, which does raise some questions, because I thought the Ultra Humanite built that for him. So that's not, I guess this, and I believe Paul Dini did address this. He said, in his mind, it's kind of a prototype of the full suit that he gets later on, and I think that's fine. That's all well and good, and we find out that the reason this robot was so darn powerful was, in fact, that not only was it built with some of the remnants of a hollowed out Brainiac, but it also was using Superman as sort of a living solar battery to power itself. And but in order to stop it, we get to see Batman suit up in the very Frank Miller-esque robot bat suit and go fly around and fight the robot, fight Lex Luthor. He's finally able to free Superman, and Superman kind of takes it from there. So it's interesting, Cal. And I guess I don't know if we want to do pros and cons, but obviously the biggest pros are just seeing these characters and interacting again for me, I think. And
correct, absolutely.
And like we said, hearing those little mentions of A World's Finest or other past stories, and sort of reminding you of this larger world. That being said, if I have a critique, I don't love that the finality of this story is Batman basically getting in an Iron Man suit and flying after a plane.
Yeah, I don't
It just
disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I think I'll let you continue, and then I'll give my 2 cents on the story as a whole.
That's fair. Yeah, I understand that first and foremost, this comic is, and I shouldn't say first and foremost, but part of this comic is it is a promotional tool for the toy line, and so trying to figure out a quote unquote organic way to work in this version of Batman getting into that big Dark Knight Returns style suit was probably going to be hard and probably going to feel a little forced no matter what. So I'm not judging it too harshly. And like I said, I did like that in the end. He didn't just out muscle Lex or the robot. He kind of just eventually he outthinks him and figures out a way to free Superman, which I thought was clever. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I definitely enjoyed the story overall, but I do think that part of it being sort of the finale of this chapter 2 of the first issue here was a little bit like, it's just not what I'm used to. I'm not necessarily saying it's good or bad. It's just certainly not what I'm used to from a new Batman Adventures, Batman the Animated Series style world.
Yeah, I think what you're sort of getting at there, where you're alluding to, was my main not complaint, but main critique. First of all, I love this. Love being back here. We're both big fans. That's why we're doing a podcast about it. So needless to say, we're going to recommend that you check this out regardless. I think my main critique of it is that it doesn't necessarily, it hasn't grabbed me as an authentic feeling DCAU Batman story. I don't know what that is, if it's the tone necessarily. Like it's not very dark, it's not very gritty. And that's okay. Every Batman story doesn't have to be dark and gritty, but sure. You are absolutely right in saying that it feels like they were given directives that said, hey, you have to include Batman in a robot costume, Lex Luthor in a robot costume, another giant robot that the robot Luthor can fit into, and we want there to be spots for two action figures, characters in the robot, so that we can also sell additional figures. Have more characters in it. So
right.
I can't imagine the difficulties of trying to sandwich in, like you said, certain things. And in a way, I'm sort of glad that they got the Dark Knight Returns Batman suit kind of out of the way. Like, of all the things that I saw, my thought was that maybe they were going to try and have, once Superman flies out of the front of that machine, I was like, all right, here we go. Another Batman versus Superman battle that we've seen ad nauseum for the last, 30 years or whatever it is. But thankfully, it was just, I appreciate that they used it in just, all right, well, he's got to use this robot suit to beat a bigger robot. Like, I did like that. I like that they didn't just take the easy route and say, all right, well, this is his anti-Superman suit that he has had created for years just in case Superman goes rogue. Like, that wasn't. So yeah, I would say that I'm happy to wet my whistle. I'm actually, the part that I appreciated, I think, most about the story, and we have not mentioned it yet, but is the sort of side story, the B story, which was barely touched in on part 1, but got fleshed out a little bit more, and looks like is going to be fleshed out throughout the series, and that is the introduction of the Jason Todd character.
You mean that mysterious man in the shadows? We don't know his name for sure just yet.
Oh, good point. He just matches the Jason Todd action figure. That's all. That gentleman that looks mysteriously like that Jason Todd figure.
Surely coincidental, I'm sure. But no, yeah, that's certainly the most interesting thing, because obviously, and we've talked about that before. I think on our last bonus episode, actually. But the Tim Drake Robin in the new Batman Adventures was sort of really, he was really almost only the Tim Drake character in name only. Like, so much of his personality and attributes come from Jason Todd, because and the producers basically just said, well, we wanted to use the current Robin. We didn't want to call him Jason Todd because then there'd be an expectation for us to kill him. But we liked Jason's origin story. We liked that he's like this rough kind of kid that comes from a criminal family. So we're just gonna mishmash pick and choose what we want. And they've done that plenty of times with other DCAU versions of these characters. I think that's fine. But that being said, because the Tim Robin character is so Jasoned up all the way through to having, kind of their own version of death in the family with the flashbacks in the Return of the Joker movie, where he isn't killed, but he's turned into this mindless Joker clone and all of that. It kind of felt like, well, there's no way to ever introduce a Jason Todd into this world. And so when that figure was announced, and then later on when it was announced that yes, in fact, Jason Todd will be featured in this world, I think everybody kind of raised their eyebrows, because like, well, how's that gonna work? And we're getting a little taste of it so far, and I would agree that's definitely the most intriguing thread so far.
Yeah, I absolutely concur, and that this issue is sort of a table setter, I think, as story wise. Very, 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 very introductory. Good wet your whistle. And again, the very first issue I felt worked in a good way and making you want more. This one does that effectively also by leaving the Jason Todd thread till the very end, the very final page, and leaving some mystery there. And we see that it looks like that the next issue is going to involve Deathstroke, as it says Deathstroke comes to town, or whatever it says. It wraps up this issue. So it looks like next week, or 2 weeks from now, I guess, when the next issue hopefully releases, we will be introduced to Deathstroke.
Yeah, and that's another interesting one, because obviously that's a character, for whatever reason, was never brought in during the original Batman the Animated Series, and then in the era where maybe it would have made most sense in like the Justice League Unlimited time, obviously he was sort of tied up in the Teen Titans show, and for better or worse, there's kind of a rule where if a character's being used on one show, they don't want another version of him showing up on others. And I'm sure there's examples of them kind of breaking that. I mean, The Batman was going on at the same time that Batman was in Justice League, but a lot of the other ancillary Batman characters weren't allowed to appear, for instance. So, that's certainly another interesting thing to see the Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, their sort of take on what Deathstroke could be in this DCAU world. I'm definitely excited to check that out.
Absolutely. Last thing that we'll talk about, Liam, we would hate to run without talking about. We mentioned him at the beginning as the gentleman who designed the action figures. Then, of course, the gentleman that's doing the artwork for this, being Ty Templeton. I can say that the most impressive thing about this comic has to be the artwork.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's like we said, it's like he could draw these characters in his sleep, and that is one thing that I think from the first page where you see Batman fighting Bane, you just feel right at home,
Absolutely. Yeah. The characters are directly on model. And as you stated, Ty's been doing this for a very, very long time. Ty is really good. It's the colorist is Monica. What's her name? Monica
Cabina, I believe. We might be butchering the pronunciation, but
yeah, no disrespect that's meant by that if it's an uneducated pronunciation, but the colors are fantastic. Stuff pops off the page. Obviously, a digital comic book looks and is going to be slightly different than a hard copy old style in your hand comic book, Liam. But yeah. I think that between the art and the coloring, things really, really jump off the digital page.
Yeah, and that I would agree is probably the most fun. The most fun part is just seeing these characters come back to life in a in a really fun way. And yeah, seeing them in scenarios, even though we kind of talked and joked about the forced integration of the robot suit. Batman looks real cool when he's when he's flying around in that suit, and getting to see the shot of the panel of Superman bursting out of the robot with his his eyes glowing with the heat vision. It's really, really well done. And there's some really, really fun visuals to be had. I think that's a definite thumbs up in that category.
Yeah, I concur completely. So before we go here, I guess if I would love to review these comics as they come out. Obviously, this is a big part of the DCAU. We mentioned at the beginning we can't give this a standard out of 40 score. So if I was giving this a from 1 to 10 rating, I guess I would put this at about a 6 out of 10, which I still recommend. Even at that, even at a 6 out of 10 rating, I would give it. Make sure you go check this out, just because it's fun to be had. It's new content, and who knows with being able to support this content, if this miniseries does well, if we'll get a full-fledged length, comic series out of it, or maybe a movie down the line, a direct-to-DVD film or something like that. But I would probably give this a 6 out of 10, which is a good start. But I'm definitely looking for more in the next issues. Hopefully, more grounded and less giant robots. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's about fair. I was a little stronger. I wrote down 7 out of 10. So. Yeah, and I think a lot of that just comes from the general excitement of being back in the world, and as we mentioned, the really fun teases of this larger Jason Todd story, and some of the other things teased, like Deathstroke coming in, and personally, I'm excited, as Paul Dini's mentioned, that Robin will be a focus of the next couple issues. So I'm excited to see some of the larger Bat family have a role to play. Excited to, again, just to live in that world a little bit more. And I think honestly one of the sad parts of, or maybe not sad, but one of the things that doesn't happen very often in the new Batman Adventures episodes that did get to happen fairly often in the comic book tie-ins is that it's fun when we actually get to see the whole Bat family together, when you get to see Batman, Robin, Nightwing, and Batgirl all together. And so I'm looking forward to maybe getting to see that a little bit as well. So definitely excited about the future with this. And this was a good start, and I'm thinking it'll only get better from here.
I imagine so. Well, don't forget to check us out on social media. Liam runs our Twitter page at DCAU Review. You can check out previews for other episodes as well as our Flashback Fridays at DCAU Review on Instagram. Also, don't forget to check out our website at DCAUreview.com. You can check out our breakdown of other episodes, our in continuity episodes, as well as our other bonus episodes. Be sure to check those out. Liam, anything else before we go?
No, just once again, very excited for the future of this. And, in the interview at the end of last month, Paul Dini and the president of DC Direct mentioned that there might be some other Superman figures coming in this line sometime in the future. So definitely excited, whether or not, as you said, whether or not it's other animated adaptations, more comic books, more action figures. We always just want a little bit more of this DCAU world. So definitely very excited for the future. And yeah, go ahead and tweet us or message us on Instagram and tell us what you're most excited about with this series. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely, can't wait. So until next time, I'm Cal,
and I'm Liam,
and we will talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Farewell.